Hello and welcome to Shop Talk Live. Joining us today are Sid Gaitondo, SVP and GM at PDI Global Logistics Solutions, Mike Sahigo, who's Executive VP of Sales at CAF, and together with Mike on today's episode, we're joined by the 6 participants of the Global Forecourt Experience Challenge. Dan, over to you.
Well, welcome to Shop Talk Live. We're just over 7 months into 2020, the year of COVID-19, and it seems like a very good moment to take stock of where we are. So on today's program, in the first part, we'll be finding out about reflecting really on the shared experience so far by looking at fuel sales across all regions of the world. Then we'll be finding out more about the Global Forecourt Experience Challenge, and looking at our industry from an operational perspective, talking to representatives from Circle K, Cohen Markets, Engen South Africa, the Maxwell Group, On the Run Australia, and Puma Energy. I'd like to introduce our first guest, Sid Gaitondo, Senior Vice President and General Manager, Global Logistics Solutions at PDI. Welcome, Sid.
Thank you, Dan. Thanks for having me on the show.
You're very welcome. Sid, we've spoken a lot, and I've been, obviously looking at the data as it's come through. PDI put something very interesting together here. Can you just tell us how that came about?
Yeah, so PDI, as you know, we basically provide enterprise software for wholesale convenience retail and wholesale petroleum. So this is near and dear to our heart. We monitor fuel trends, because it's not just the software we provide, right? It's really core to our customers' operation. As much as we like to, diversify our business, I mean, in terms of convenience retail, fuel is an important aspect and results in a lot of sales in this industry. So we track it because it matters to our customers, it matters to us. And also, if you look carefully, right, at least the short-term trend in fuel closely reflects how the economy is doing, really. You would say it's an indicator of consumer confidence or an lagging indicator to an economic upturn or downturn. So we really like to monitor this.
So just tell us about the data that you put together, and we're going to start looking at it in a minute by different global regions, but just tell us about the data that you're going to show us.
Yeah, so as you know, PDI is a global business. We have logistics, fuel pricing, we have loyalty solutions and ERP, and a lot of this is fuel, right? A lot of this addresses fuel. So we were tracking, due to the global pandemic, how the different regions in the world, countries in the world have been affected, right? So what we did is we looked at the data in our systems that our customers do, which is a broad, somewhere between 25 and 30% of the global fuel retail sales, and then divided them by the region to just see how regions were doing. And there's some really interesting insights, right? I would have thought, just starting out, everybody would have been impacted similarly by the pandemic. The one trend that's common is in April, when the lockdown really happened across the globe, you see a decline in almost all countries, but the rate of recovery has been really different from country to country or region to region, which is really interesting and will come out in some of the slides we go through.
Well, let's start. Where should we start? Whereabouts around the world are we going to start with?
Let's start with Western and Eastern Europe, right? So just looking at Western and Eastern Europe, if you look closed regions, but politically really different of how they've reacted to the pandemic. And also, if you look at how Western Europe's been impacted versus Eastern Europe, I mean, you really took the severe brunt, Western Europe did, right? So this reflects, like in April when I talked about everybody generally locked down, it's come down pretty sharply, right? If you take Jan numbers at 100%, April was somewhere between 60 and 65% of that Jan number. But if you look at the rate of recovery, right, as soon as the lockdown came out in Eastern Europe, they have recovered really fast, right? I mean, it's 83, 92, 108%. So really they're above where they were sitting in January. But again, look at Eastern Europe, right? 61% of what they were doing in January. And even though it has been come back, it's been slow to come back. And considering that this is summer and, summer fuel consumption should be higher, you're at least sitting 15% in Western Europe, lower than where you would be last year. So even though the recovery has been good, I think there's some challenges still ahead, and this will continue to recover as the lockdown comes out. More than the pandemic, right? I mean, it really depends upon how governments react to the market.
So I guess, looking at July, my first, and thinking about it from a Western Europe perspective, I was quite pleasantly pleased to see that number for July. And so I guess there is some good news there in terms of the sort of looking broadly at the economic recovery as well as what's happening for fuel.
Correct. I mean, what I have been most surprised about is how resilient our industry has been, right, and coming back. Some of the other industries have not been so lucky. So I consider ourselves really lucky in, being able to react to the pandemic. I think every one of our customers, right, in this space has reacted really well. And we'll discuss some more when we go to the US slides next. But if you look at US, right, I mean, we track this data again closely. As you can see, we have recovered well. There's of course, some more recovery that needs to take place. But as soon as the lockdown came out, the recovery started happening, and it's back at almost 96% now, right? One thing I'd like to point out with the US market, NACS, you all know NACS, they release fuel margin data across US, and we've been tracking that as well. So even though the fuel consumption was down, historically margins have been 20 to 25 cents per gallon. They were as high as 90 cents, right? So really, even though fuel volumes were down, the retailers have been surviving because their margins have been high, right, in terms of fuel. So that's really good news on how our industry has done through this crisis.
Well, I mean, again, we'll talk about this as the program develops, but our industry has done a hell of a job in fighting to stay in business and keep things going, hasn't it? And it's it in a way doesnand surprise me. I think there's such a lot of character in our industry, and it's come to the fore, hasn't it, Sid, during this crisis?
Yes, it has. And if you look at Mexico and Caribbean, I was before I saw this data, right, I was thinking it was going to reflect how the US market was doing. And if you see, really, it has not been impacted that hard, right, due to the crises. It's mostly probably the government response. The lockdown wasn't as severe. And if you look right now in the summer months, the consumption is really high, right? We were joking amongst ourselves, thinking everybody's just from North America has gone down there in the summer for vacation. So it's a really good picture for our industry, by the way.
Yeah, and what other indicators in the economy would sort of point the same way as some of these numbers? Just thinking about the stock market. I mean, I think you mentioned that when we spoke yesterday, Sid.
Yeah. So if you look at this, right, I would say the stock market is a leading indicator of how the economy is doing. And this data really reflects very well when you look at it, right? You can say, why the stock market? I mean, a lot of people are questioning whether this is right. But this kind of tells you the consumer confidence, right? As you see people getting back on the road, the economic activity picking up, fuel data is going to reflect that. And you can see the stock market and you can really know that, well, the recovery is really on its way, right? It's not just a hype that's coming up. Now, we all are concerned and are looking at, what we call as the second wave. But I think as long as the governments don't lock down as much as they did in April, I think this recovery is sustainable, and we're cautiously optimistic over there, right?
It's really great news to hear that. What else? Where else have you been looking, Sid? Where else?
Yeah. Let's go to the next country, really, Australia, New Zealand, and Southeast Asia, right? A very important market for PDI. And if you look at the data, right, you can just see what a great job the ANZ governments, both New Zealand and Australia, have done. You can look at the case count. I mean, they've really been doing good contract tracing. They've really addressed the pandemic head on. And this data really shows you, right? I mean, yeah, it was down in April, but as soon as the lockdown came out, right, the recovery was almost instantaneous. It's back considering they are in their winter months right now. So if they're higher than January, that is really good data. So those countries have been performing really well. Southeast Asia, again, what was really surprising about this is the lockdown really has been severe, right? So you see the downturn in April, but if you look at May, what's what stands out is their May data is even lower, in terms of volumes than what April was. So you can, from that, you can deduce that the lockdown was even more prevalent and took a longer time to come back to normal. But again, once the lockdowns come out, right, the economy's been resilient. I mean, fuel volume sales are up. And you see that reflected in the June and July numbers. So really excited about how almost all regions have done coming out of the crises.
Yeah, which is what we want to hear. And what other sort of stories are there out there globally in terms of what's happened in different markets? What else have you got, Sid?
Yeah. Why don't we take a look at Middle East and Sub-Saharan Africa, right? So one thing you stood out is, again, Middle East, a really small market. So I was expecting the data to be, the downturn not to be that severe. But again, it's very fuel dependent economy. And this is just fuel retail volumes, really, but they even use gasoline for energy production, right? So there, if you look at the broader trend in gasoline, I mean, their consumption has gone up as people stay at home and use basically gasoline and diesel for heating, for cooling purposes. And again, the economic activity wasn't all that clamped down, right? The government clampdown was not that severe. So there's a small downturn in April, but again, has done almost flat as you would expect with the rest of the world. And even if you compare prior year data, it's all good. What's really stood out is Sub-Saharan Africa. I wasn't expecting, I haven't been really tracking that in the news all that much, but I did, I did go and start looking at that data. And it does seem to have, the pandemic does seem to have affected that region really hard. If you look at 35%, almost 65% lower than January, that is some decline, right? And even on the recovery, you're still sitting at about 25% lower than you were back in January. So I'm really hoping that next month we see that come back a little bit more as the lockdown is removed. But that's something I'm going to be closely tracking from here on out.
Yeah, that, I mean, as you say, I mean, that April number is very concerning, isn't it?
Yeah.
And also, obviously, we've seen a lot of good July numbers for everybody, but not Sub-Saharan Africa at the moment.
Yeah. So I mean, if I look at it again, I'm cautiously optimistic. I know that clampdown has been severe and the economy has been affected, but if I try and look at the other countries, again, Sub-Saharan Africa should be no different, right? So I'm hoping by October and November, unless they keep the lockdown a little bit more, it should be back to where, the other countries are.
What about if we take the global picture, Sid, and just step back and look at the whole picture?
Yeah, so globally, if you combine all the data and look at the picture, I mean, our industry has done really well, right? I mean, some of the industries, if you know, people are going out of business, especially just general retail, restaurants are closing down. But if you look at just fuel volumes, I mean, 35% lower. Again, not as hard hit as other industries. If you look at the NACS data, the margins were higher, so they were able to, recover some of the downturn in volume by making more money off the gallon. So our industry did really well in that regards. And if you look at today, I mean, we're sitting slightly below where we were in January. Would we like to be in summer months, like to see more higher numbers? Yes, but given where we are, I'm really cautiously optimistic that this is going to recover by the end of the year.
I have to say, I mean, I congratulate PDI and yourself for putting these numbers together. I think, we've obviously, you can read so much differing opinion about where the economies are. And I think it's just obviously for every CEO, who's watching, who's leading a business and trying to predict the future. I mean, it's really helpful to understand the past up to the minute, isn't it? So I think it's very valuable.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I'm tracking the stock market as well. It's at an all-time high. So I'm thinking this is, unless there's a big clampdown again, this recovery should continue in our market, right? I am very optimistic that way.
Let's hope so. Well, I'd just like to tell the audience, I mean, what we'll be doing with Sid's presentation, with your permission, Sid, is sending a copy to everybody. So you got those slides. You might want to use some of them for your region or for global, for some of the global retailers watching. You might find all of them very relevant. So we'll be sending everyone who's in the audience a copy of those very shortly after today's session. So Sid, I just want to thank you, PDI, for putting that data together. And look, I think it's given us a fascinating sort of positioning, taking stock of where we've got to in this shared experience over the last 7+ months. So thanks for joining us, Sid.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Speak soon, I'm sure. Great. Excellent. Well, that was, I think, a really interesting sort of tee up to where our sector is, where forecourts are globally, and obviously some good news in that we're all markets are almost all markets at least are really tracking quite well now in terms of a recovery. So for the second part of the program today, it's going to be my great pleasure really to talk about the human operational dimension of what you do, what our industry does. And what we mean by that is the teams, the people, our colleagues, our friends who have worked day in, day out on the retail front line through this crisis. And they're very special people. And I think, we really owe them a huge respect for what they continue to do in their businesses. And what we'd like to do is talk about something which, in partnership with CAF, who is the outdoor leader the leader in global leader in outdoor cleaning, we'd like to talk to you about the Global Forecourt Experience Challenge. Many people in the audience may have heard about it already. So let's explain it a little bit more before we go and meet some of the teams involved. Really what the challenge aimed to do, and this was something which, this idea was put together by CAF, working with my colleague Nicholas Scherzer here at Insight. What the challenge aimed to do was elevate the customer experience on the forecourt by inspiring teams to create cleaner and safer environments. It's running over 8 weeks between July and August. And what the challenge does is really inspire teams to focus on what matters to customers, what always matters to customers, frankly, but what particularly matters right now. So of course, that's customer service, that's cleanliness, and above all else, it's having safe environments. We're now well into this challenge, and we've got teams, I'm delighted to say, from some really, really big names in our industry. Circle K, Cohen Markets, Engen South Africa, the Maxwell Group in Ireland, On the Run Australia, and Puma Energy have all been taking part, are all in the middle of this now. But let me do this properly and tell you where all the teams are from. Circle K, USA, but really it's San Antonio, Texas, we're talking about where the store is. Puma, it's Guatemala, of course, Guatemala City in this case. On the Run Australia, well, it's Adelaide, South Australia. Welcome, guys. Maxwell Ireland, it's Ennis on the beautiful west coast of Ireland. Engen, fantastic city of Cape Town in South Africa. And lastly, Cohen Markets, who are in Toronto in Ohio. So I'd like to welcome you all on to Shop Talk Live now, and also ask Mike Zahaiko at CAF to join us as well. Very warm welcome, guys. Hi, Mike, how are you doing?
Hi, Dan, thank you.
Very good. Aled, Wayne, Rodrigo,
Evening.
Colin.
Hello.
Sorry, not Sid. Yeah, welcome, guys.
Thank you for the invitation.
You're very welcome. Really, as we and Colin, if you could join us as well.
Yep. Hi.
Hi, Colin. How you doing? So look, before we get into talking to the teams about what's been going on with this challenge, Mike, if I could just have a quick chat with you first. Tell us about the themes that you've been covering so far in this challenge, Mike. What's it focused on?
Absolutely, Dan. So the first theme has really been cleanliness and safety. So for the first 2 weeks, we focused directly responding to this global pandemic on making sure customers felt that they had a safe and clean environment. even prior to the pandemic, cleanliness and safety are always top issues for customers. We've found in the data since the pandemic, customers have really taken those two key elements and conformed them into one. So in the eyes of the customer, cleanliness is safety and safety is cleanliness. So that was the first 2 weeks focusing on that, and that's continued throughout this journey.
So kind of the psychology of clean, if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. So the psychology of clean is something that really matters a lot to customers. We can always communicate to customers with graphics and marketing that, hey, we're safe, come join us. But what we found across many retailers is the most effective way is by showing the customer. So this is when a customer is at the store and they see someone from the retailer actually active and cleaning. So psychology of clean is telling a customer that it's safe to come back by not just telling them or writing to them, but showing them in cleanliness and safety practices at the store. And we've seen people do everything from changing their mopping, which used to happen in the evening, to now happening in the middle of the day, or putting people with a vest and going outside and actively cleaning and wiping down the pumps. And that's gone a long way in making customers feel safer.
And what are the other, before we move on, what are the other themes that you're covering over the next few weeks?
Yeah, absolutely. So the next theme is the customer experience. And what we've tasked the retailer challengers to do is put on the customer goggles, look at their sites from the eyes of the customer and have that experience, and then see how well that customer experience aligns with the brand promise. So oftentimes we have brand promises, they go up on the website, but to really take this, bring it down to the store level and asking store level employees to compare the customer experience that they see with that brand promise. And that's led to a lot of great insights. And it could stop there, but the reason for themes 3 and 4 is really to ensure that this lasts. So the next theme that we're currently on is sustained change. And this is empowering the leaders of these organizations to really find the processes and mindsets that can allow them to have this not just be a one-time event, but an ongoing change and a better experience for their customers. And then lastly, we're going to use the customer feedback to really close the loop. We've used customer feedback to tell us what matters most, and that's why we focus on cleaning and safety. But the last part of this is trying to see from the eyes of the customer and from their feedback and from the data, is it having an impact? Are we getting the desired outcome we want? And then using that feedback to constantly improve and make sure that we maintain that change long beyond the pandemic.
Great. Well, thanks, Mike. So that takes us through the themes, and if you like, you're just putting ourselves in the shoes of the different teams that have been taking part. Look, before we go to the teams, and look, guys, I've got questions for all of you, as you know. But before we go there, I'd like to just my colleague Nick Scherzer, who, as you know very well, and has been very much involved with you, Mike, on this. I'd just like to ask Nick to read out one customer comment, which I won't say which retailer this was sent to us by, and nor will Nick, but what I think it does is it sums up for all of you, all the teams, the level of delivery that you've been doing for customers. It's a long quote, but I think it just epitomizes, what you guys, and to be honest, what our sector is doing for customers right now. So Nick, could you just read that to us? And it's really powerful, and I think it's a great way to start our discussion.
Sure, Dan, thanks. So the quote and customer feedback is this. I was in your store this morning, and after I left, I felt the need to write this. I've been in your store once or twice before and always had a pleasant visit. Great new site with all new amenities. It really is a pleasure to stop here. During COVID and lockdown, obviously I've not been traveling as much until today. I have to say I had a great shopping experience. From when I pulled up to ordering food, getting my bits for my travels, I can't fault the service I received. Normally I'd end it there, but not today. I was really impressed at how the staff were coping with COVID. I must have seen 2 staff members, if not more, sanitizing areas after people were finished eating. All customers and staff were wearing masks. The store was extremely busy, but all was under control. I even saw somebody standing at the door asking people to wait before others were let in. I felt very comfortable and safe in your store today and will definitely be back. The staff were very friendly and even helped me when I had to buy oil for the car and even offered to put it in for me. The food we got was so good and great value, and for the times we were in, I thought I'd be paying a fortune. You have a customer for life in me and my family. Please pass on my words to your staff They really deserve it.
Well, I didn't want to read that out because I'm not sure I could have got through it, to be honest. I don't know. Maybe it's because my daughter got her A-level results yesterday. I don't know, but wow. I think that sums up some of the achievements that you guys have been delivering day in, day out. And look, thanks for that, Nick. And I'd like to introduce Mark Cribbin, who's Irish Operations Manager at Aramark, working for Maxol, and also Wayne Gonzalez, who's National Convenience Operations Manager in South Africa for Engen. If I could ask you guys a question first, and I'd like to ask you first, Mark, and then Wayne, what the challenge has meant for you and your site teams. So, Mark.
Thanks, Dan. Thank you for the question. I think probably the word challenge is very appropriate. As I personally and the team, we always try to challenge ourselves every day to be the very, very best at what we do, representing our company, Aramark, representing our partners, Maxol. We also represent our staff, our very, very loyal staff every day. And, our leader, my mentor is Frank Leeson, who you're all fully aware who Frank is. And, we're trying to represent Frank and his values as well in the Forecourt retail business that we look after here in Ireland. And through Frank's engagement, I've been in and around the NACS setup for the last couple of years, and I completed a NACS leadership program in the States last year. And when I was in Atlanta, I had the pleasure of meeting Mike and his team from CAF. And so you get to see the wider audience in global forecourt retail and what's important to people, what's important in cleanliness and safety, and building up relationships with people like Mike and his team. And through that sort of interaction in Atlanta, we had the opportunity to invite Mike and his team to Ireland pre-COVID, beginning of this year. And we sort of had the chance to showcase who we are as a business, what we do, what are our best practices, and sort of show the wider audience and wider community in the world who we are in Ireland. Sort of get a little bit, so we're in Ireland, we're small, but we're very, very proud and very excited about what we do in Ireland. The challenge has given us the opportunity to sort of interact with people globally and sort of showcase what we do. It gives us a chance to test ourselves against the best of the best in the world, which the guys on the challenge are on. And it also gives us a chance to sort of share best practices, share knowledge, and build up friendships. I mean, I'm astounded at the level of interaction we've seen on the group, on the WhatsApp group, between everybody involved. The sharing of ideas, the friendship, the banter that's becoming involved. And there's people on this challenge now who we will continue to be friends with for life. And if anything else, the challenge has given us this opportunity to do this. Laura and the team in Clarecastle have completely taken this to, they're so excited to be part of something global. And I mean, she put it on the group, she sends her team around to her competitors to sort of mystery shop and see, are they better at what they do than us? Bring back some ideas, share them. They have a little huddle every single day. They talk about the group, they talk about the challenge and the wonderful opportunities that this has given to both Laura and her team and us as a company. And myself, Laura, and everybody involved would like to thank yourself and Nick and Mike for this opportunity.
Well, thank you so much, Mark, and well said. Always ask an Irishman to put it well. And, you away with words. Fantastic. Wayne, what about South Africa and beautiful Cape Town and your amazing staff there? How have they responded?
Well, Dan, look, firstly, it's been an amazing journey thus far for everybody. And I think boldly for Engen South Africa, our motto out there is for our consumers is, with us, you are number one. So I think what this challenge has done for us in a big way, it has allowed Louisa and the team at the Engen La Rochelle site to really, kind of innovate themselves around, first of all, COVID. And secondly, the timing of the challenge has actually been superb. It's come at the right time. It's been the pinnacle point in terms of just making a difference and almost taking away, all the, change is never easy. And change happens as a journey. It happens over a period of time. And the challenge has allowed for those teams to stretch themselves, and I think that has been absolutely amazing. And I think as Mark has mentioned, the relationships formed in this challenge has been overwhelming. It's been heartwarming. We've united as one globally, and I think that is absolutely superb. And I'm so happy we don't use the word competition, because that just brings a different spin altogether. Challenge just elevates ourselves in terms of the way we present ourselves, the way we engage. The sharings has been phenomenal. It's been till, the time differences didn't make a difference, actually. People shared that throughout. And what it's done is, closer to home at the site, it has brought about a new level of renewed energy, of renewed focus. As Engen, we underpin by 4 quadrants, which is professionalism, safety, care, and sell. And what that brings with is, we've been to the site so many times, and the level of pride coming through, the level of wanting to do better every day, the level of connectivity has been absolutely brilliant. And I think that energy is felt by the consumer as well, because, for all of us globally, we formed relationships with our consumers over many years. And if anything, this was our biggest test pattern, to hold onto those relationships and show appreciation for both our internal staff and our consumers as a whole. So the challenge has been amazing. We are exceptionally proud to be part of it. And you know what, we're almost sad that it's only 8 weeks, to be honest with you. But I think it's brought about a level of sustainability, which I think it's important. And for Engen as a whole, it's almost set a new benchmark of how we're going to do things. And we want the rest of our forecourts are now at a point where, what is their level of aspiration to be that differentiator within that marketplace? So again, thank you very much for that.
Well, thank you, Wayne, and again, well put. And look, a hearty congratulations to you and your team for your efforts, and thank you for summing it up so well. So, how about we go to Guatemala and Rodrigo Zavala, CEO Puma Americas, and also Colin Dornish, who's Director of Operations at Cohen Markets. Guys, if I can welcome you on next. So I just really, I guess, following on from the comments already, what has taken our breath away is the massive engagement the challenge has had, and we've thought about that a little bit already today in terms of particularly the site teams and the impact that's had on the site teams and the morale, and the connectivity to the sort of global nature of this. Has been has been great for them. What about, if I could ask Rodrigo first and then Colin, has the participation in the challenge had a wider benefit for your business? And if so, what? Perhaps I could go to you, Rodrigo. And by the way, I love the location in the store.
Thank you very much, Dan, for the invitation, and thank you both to Sid and to Mike for organizing and sponsoring this. Really, this is amazing, Dan. When you and Nick actually invited us to be part of this in the middle of the pandemic, I have to recognize that I thought these people are not actually realizing what's happening. But I believe it's great to show everyone how our people are really working in these very hard conditions. But to your question on how this is affecting the wider company, as you know, we are in a big transformation in Puma. We are actually now focusing more on retail, putting the customer at the head of what we do. And really, I thought that it was going to be a nice exercise at one service station, but the energy that is coming from Fernando, the site manager, Juan Pablo, actually the area manager, and all the team at the site is being so contagious to all the organization. This is raising the bar for Puma. This is really putting the competition, the standards, is embedding new ways of working for Puma that I'm completely sure that will help us on the development of this journey towards being a better retailer. And for sure, we're getting really nice, out through the chat, really nice ideas, friendships, and new ways of working that are way beyond the challenge at the Landivar service station. And especially for them that are watching, thank you very much for all your effort. You are really putting the bar very hard for all Puma.
Well, you know, Rodrigo, thank you so much, and for the huge enthusiasm, you know, and look, you just got to congratulate your colleagues and the work they're doing. You know, it's extraordinary. Thank you for that. Colin, tell us about that question from your perspective.
Well, Dan, Nick, Mike, thank you guys very much for having us and thinking of us on this contest. Similar to Rodrigo, we were basically in the same camp where we felt like this was going to be a single site competition, and we would have done the same things that we typically do on a daily basis, make sure that our forecourts are well tended, clean, and ready to go for the next customer. And what transpired over the last 6 weeks has been blowing our expectations and has proliferated through our organization like we would have never imagined. I thought I would be talking on a weekly basis, you know, with the store team, my leadership team at site level, our district and regional manager, but the conversations have grown across the entire platform. So I've got sites 100 miles away from the site competing, talking about what they can do to get involved in the competition, what they can do to kind of upgrade their forecourts, which has been really exciting for us, as well as I think for me, there was an aha moment when I started to get inbounds from some of our support vendors asking about how they can help us in the challenge. So that combining of forces for everybody to say, you know, we're all in this together, couldn't have come at a better time. I mean, I don't think when we started the challenge, there was a very bright silver light at the end of the tunnel for some of this pandemic. And this gave the team, I think, an opportunity to come together on a topic which we all have skin in the game. You know, fuel for our business is a high % of our overall sales, and making sure that we're doing everything possible to continue to grow those sales in the middle of a pandemic when, you know, anxiety is at its highest and customer perception of what you're doing first starts on the forecourt. So, you know, it was amazing to see that over a very short period of time, the challenge had made its way into our senior leadership meetings, into our vendor meetings, and even on our Cohen community page, which is our internal Facebook page, having conversation around the challenge. So, you know, we're just very much appreciative of being a part of it. And we're also now looking at how do we do the sustainable change, looking at making our own internal challenges moving forward, but then to kind of echo on some of the sentiments already said, talking about those friendships and some of those best practices that we learned along the way and really incorporating those into our day-to-day operations. So, you know, I could not be more proud of the team and more thankful for the opportunity and what we've been awarded through this experience.
Well, it's just great to hear that, Colin. And, you know, I guess this is what my colleagues at NACS will be doing. You know, we'd be doing at the NACS show, wouldn't we? Some of this sharing, but somehow or other, we've managed to find a way of sharing our ideas globally when we all need to. And it's, you know, I think it's astonishingly powerful what you guys are achieving. Let's just focus on something which, you know, has got a lighter side as well as a serious side. Because, I mean, to be honest, I mean, looking at the WhatsApp group and, you know, some of the sharing, the ideas, but also the sort of humor and the camaraderie, I think that's the right word, really, to sum it up. Aled, your operations manager on the Run Australia, and Tony Castro, your fuel operations director for Texas Circle K. I mean, you're obviously, you know, you've been part of the WhatsApp group. It's kind of like a window into the rest of the world, isn't it? In terms of, you know, how well that's gone. I mean, tell us about it. Maybe Aled, you could start.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I think shared experience and learnings, something which comes definitely hand in hand. I really liked what you touched on earlier. You mentioned the human factor. And I think probably the biggest learning out of everything which we're currently experiencing is we're all human. We're all people. That people factor is probably the biggest learning. Now, I've got examples from each of the teams here. So, you know, Puma, what the team are doing, Rodrigo, your team, it's amazing. The videos, the imagery which is coming out is just, it's inspiring. You're seeing it, as you touched on. Obviously, Mark, the team, the food in your stores. I've seen it. It's unreal. But it's the people which drive that. Obviously, what the guys in the US are doing currently, Mark and Colin, Tony and Colin, what's coming out of the US at the moment, especially being in Australia, we hear about the US continuously, about COVID, about, I suppose, without going political, but what is obviously happening there. It's everywhere. And it's seeing what's on that WhatsApp group, it shows a complete opposite. And obviously coming out of South Africa, the struggles which you guys are doing on a day-to-day basis, let alone with a coronavirus on top of it, and that a huge pandemic, it's unreal. So I think the biggest lesson is, and it's a quote. Now I thought it was a quote from Winston Churchill, but apparently it's not. But it says, in great times of difficulty, leadership stands up. And I think that's the biggest part, whether it's the lessons on the WhatsApp group or everything shared. You could talk for hours about the lessons which we've learned, but the biggest part to us is definitely just the people. We're all just people, I suppose, navigating our way through what we're experiencing, keeping a plate spinning. We're not trying to reinvent anything, but we're trying to find a better solution for what we're doing, and obviously raise our standards, raise our bars, and absolutely cater for a customer, and essentially, grow our business at the same time.
No, well done, Aled. Bit of Celtic way with words again there. Obviously, you're a Welshman who's living in Australia. But thanks for that. You just threw a winning pass. I mean, to use a rugby analogy. Let's finish up with Tony at Circle K. Obviously, a very big global business, Tony. What's your experience of this been like?
Well, thanks, Nan, for having me, and Nick and Mike for forwarding on this challenge to us. It's been fantastic opportunity. Obviously, everybody well said and spoke to their individual experiences. I will say that the engagement, the enthusiasm, once again, I mean, it's phenomenal. Given the whole environment that we're all up against in the pandemic that's going on, aside from our day-to-day business, it's just amazing. I'm very, very proud of the store that's in this challenge today, and Dulce, and who's the store manager, and Jesse, who's our market manager, and their participation levels. I think at the end of the day, their enthusiasm, having fun, just with what's been going on and seeing what's in the app itself, along with what's going on site, that's really what it's about. Because if you're not having fun or learning, you're really not growing. And it's been fantastic for them to see at the site level, everybody's engagement and what their challenges are and how they've overcome that and what those processes look like for them. Very similar in a lot of regards. So they don't feel alone. We think about the US and we think about our business here along with other countries and what their struggles and opportunities and gaps are. But during the pandemic particularly, but when we're working on a day-to-day as operators, we have this myopic, isolated view and trying to make sure we're optimizing our value to the customer in the forecourt and the backcourt. And it's very refreshing to see that the manager and the market manager are really not alone in the world. And we all have similar challenges. And it's been fantastic to share those ideas across the board, to see that level of enthusiasm. It's really given me kind of a refresh. Been in the business a long time, and to see that across the board, it's something I'm going to leverage for sure and take away and maybe cast a net on the rest of the business unit that I operate in, hopefully the rest of the organization, and try to bring a lot of these best practices together. So my thanks, not only to the challenge itself, but to everybody that's been a part of this. You guys are doing a phenomenal job, and I very much respect everything that's being done out there, and don't feel bad if we're stealing a couple of your ideas here and there to better service our customers at the end of the day. So we really appreciate that.
Well, thank you so much, Tony. I mean, so well put. You know, I mean, one of the comments that I saw on the WhatsApp group, just to finish up, and I think you'll all remember this one, was I think and I don't know who it was who said it, but one of your store teams said, look, guys, if we're all the same company, we do an awesome job. We clean up, and by the same company, he or she, whoever said that, meant, you know, the 6 teams and how closely they were helping each other. And I guess, and I know my colleagues, my great friends at NACS would endorse this, but, you know, I guess what you're all proving is that we are all in this together, and you know, we want to help each other, you know, and I think that's one of the underlying things that does us help our industry, and when we need to work together, we do. And you know, I guess great endorsement of you guys and all that you've done. And look, I don't think we can say anything else. I think we've said it all. This is a 45-minute show, and we're bang on time. So with that, I'd just like to thank Mike, Aled, Wayne, Colin, Mark, Tony, Rod, my colleague Nick, and look, keep on rocking, guys, and you know, thank you so much for joining this challenge, and congratulations to you all.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Mike. Thanks, gents.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks.
Great.
And with that, guys, in the audience, thanks for watching. We didn't have time for questions today, but we've got some really great programs already organized for over the next few weeks and months, and we'll be letting you know about those soon. So I hope you've enjoyed today. I think some remarkable stuff from those 6 teams, and also a very interesting presentation from Sid at PDI. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks very much for watching. Good afternoon.